or DTE, or checking for gas leaks.
A knock at the door seemed harmless enough. A couple of men, claiming to be from the utility company, needing access to the home for a gas leak check. But for Hussein Murray and his wife, this visit turned into a deadly nightmare. What began as a simple act of trust ended in brutal violence, leaving a beloved 72-year-old man dead in his own home. On the evening of October 10, 2024, Hussein Murray and his wife were startled by the sound of a knock on the door at their quiet Rochester Hills home in Michigan. The two men standing on their doorstep were wearing the uniforms of DTE Energy workers and explained that they were there to investigate a gas leak. Murray, a community-minded man who had spent his life supporting his family and neighbors, listened carefully but declined to let them in. The time was late, around 10 p.m., and Murray was cautious, sensing that something wasn't quite right. He and his wife decided not to allow the men entry that night. Unfortunately, the men weren't ready to give up. The following morning, October 11th, the same men returned, this time around 10 a.m., with the same story about a gas leak. Hussein, likely thinking that a legitimate safety concern could be at hand, welcomed them into his home. Little did he know, this act of trust would soon cost him his life. Please subscribe to our channel and make comments about what you think of our videos. The men, later identified as Carlos Jose Hernandez, 37, and Joshua Zuazo, 39, followed Murray into the basement under the guise of checking the gas line. But their true intentions soon surfaced. When the pair returned upstairs, they aggressively confronted Murray's wife, demanding to know where the valuables were kept. In an act of terror, they tied her wrists and ankles with duct tape, immobilizing her as they searched the home. Murray, meanwhile, was trapped in the basement, facing an unknown fate. It was during the chaos that the true horror unfolded. While Murray's wife was bound and threatened, one of the intruders viciously attacked him in the basement. His injuries were so severe that when authorities arrived, they couldn't immediately determine whether he had been shot or beaten to death. During the home invasion, Murray's wife managed to let out a scream, only to be brutally silenced with a strike to the face from one of the men. The attackers continued their rampage, stealing her phone and a valuable watch before fleeing the house in a white pickup truck outfitted with orange cones, further reinforcing their masquerade as utility workers. As soon as she was able to free herself, Murray's wife called 911. Law enforcement responded quickly, but it was already too late to save Murray. They found his lifeless body in the basement, his bloodied figure a heartbreaking symbol of the violence that had shattered the peaceful home. Murray's injuries were so gruesome that detectives at first weren't sure if he had been shot or bludgeoned. The shocking murder sent waves of grief through the Rochester Hills community.
That they were specifically targeted, that it wasn't a random thing knocking on random doors. I mean, they went into a house with clear motive to rob somebody and didn't care what they had to do it. I mean, if you go in pre-planned with duct tape and zip ties, and they were specifically looking for cash or a safe, things like that.
Please subscribe to our channel and make comments about what you think of our videos. Hussein Murray's family was devastated. His grandson spoke out shortly after the incident, expressing his sorrow and admiration for the man he described as having a heart of gold. His words echoed the feelings of many in the community who had known Murray as a kind, generous person who treated everyone around him with warmth and respect. Following the murder, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office moved swiftly, aided by surveillance footage from neighbors' security cameras. The footage showed the suspects arriving and leaving the scene in their white pickup truck, and their disguises were caught on camera, offering vital clues to investigators. The sheriff's office released the footage, appealing to the public for help in identifying the men. The break in the case came when the suspects were tracked down across state lines. Carlos Jose Hernandez was apprehended first in Louisiana on October 12th, where he was already wanted for multiple warrants in Ohio for armed robbery.
So, as you know, we have captured suspect number 1 in Louisiana. That is in process. We have a 3-count warrant as a starting point for him.
His accomplice, Joshua Zuazo, was arrested shortly after in Michigan. Both men are now facing serious charges, including felony murder and unlawful imprisonment.
We were able to ascertain that he was very much traveling to get out of state. And we had a sheriff's office in Louisiana on the freeway watching for a vehicle we believed he was traversing in to get across the country. And they, in fact, spotted him and pulled him over.
Hernandez, who had been the more aggressive of the two during the attack, is also facing additional charges for the violent assault on Murray's wife. The arrests brought some relief to the grieving family, but the scars left by the tragedy run deep.
I just wish he didn't open the door to myself when I saw that. We're always going to think about this. It's always going to be in our head. It's going to be in our head how he died and how he suffered. What was he thinking when he was dying? You know, this is what hurts us the most. They took his life, but they took part of our soul. The day he got buried was the day he was supposed to have the gathering with the family. He was preparing a feast and the meat was still downstairs in the basement and everything. We're gonna have to house them and feed them in prison while my cousin is gone forever. You know, how do you cope with that? You don't.
The brutal nature of the crime has left an indelible mark on Rochester Hills, and the case has become a grim reminder of the dangers lurking behind even the most ordinary-seeming encounters. Residents in the area have expressed heightened concern, knowing that Murray's killers preyed on the trust of an elderly couple who simply opened their door to someone they thought was there to help. Murray's legacy lives on through the memories of his family and community. His grandson's words, speaking of a man with unwavering kindness and love for those around him, stand in stark contrast to the cruel, senseless act of violence that ended his life. As the case against Hernandez and Zuazo heads to court, Murray's loved ones seek justice, hoping that the full weight of the law will be brought down on those responsible for this heinous crime. Please subscribe to our channel and make comments about what you think of our videos.